Katie's gonna start.
Specialist in the CAFO program.
I'm Tammy Stark, and I'm just a member of the public and member of the community.
Bruce Wilson with Big Camera Engineering.
Tom Thompson, Road Northwest Ag Consulting.
Alice Morrison, Friends of Family Farmers.
Amanda Sweeney, Department of Ag CAFO Program.
Christy Caldwell, CAFO program analyst.
All right, Isaac, do you want to start us off on the virtual with introduction?
Yep, sure can. Hello, everyone. Isaac Stapleton. I'm the Natural
I think you're
Resources.
muted, Isaac.
Am I? You guys can't hear me?
I can hear
No,
you.
we muted and we can't hear you.
Now
You
you
can hear me
do.
now? Okay, great. Like, I'm not muted on my side. Good morning or afternoon, whatever it is. I'm Isaac Stapleton. I'm the Natural Resources Program Director for ODA.
Mike.
Mike McCord, Oregon Water Resources Department Field Services Division.
Thanks, Mike. Carrie.
Carrie Coat, reuse coordinator with Water Resources.
Thank you. David.
David May with Valley Fresh Food Skyline Farms, calling in from sunny California.
Hey, good for you. Thanks, David. Lily, did I get that right?
Yeah, hi, Lily DePaula here with the Stand Up to Factory Farms Coalition.
All right, thank you. I think that looks like our group so far. We'll probably have people joining, and we'll get them as they come along. So we record this meeting just so you're all aware, and we use the recordings for our minutes. And so I'm not sure if anybody who was here at the last meeting in July had edits or changes to the minutes from the last meeting. Amanda usually posts them right on our website about between a week and 10 days after the meeting's over. Anyone with amendments, changes, updates, corrections? All right, we'll keep those as entered. The next item on the agenda is extending the fall dairy outreach activities through early 2024. And if you remember, in April of this year, we rolled out to this group anyway at that time, an outreach program that we were doing to small and raw milk dairies around the state. And so we've had continuing conversations with some of those folks and other groups, and got a request to extend the outreach activity for a time period. And so we're going to go ahead and extend it, what we're going to call the outreach part of it, through April of 2024. Hopefully to take advantage of the winter months, right, when folks are a little bit less busy, and look at kind of between the holidays, right, and before spring turnout starts and everybody gets busy again with spring work. So that's the plan. I really didn't have too much after that. We have a couple of facilities, one that was permitted here a few days ago, and then one that Katie and I are going to see not next week, but the week after. And so we are having some conversations from the field on that. I've not been very successful in conversations with OSU's small farm group. They had a change in leadership, and early on in January, February, we did talk to them and set up a time to make a presentation, and that kind of got sidelined because of their change in leadership. So we're looking to try to reconnect with that group and the new leader there. There are a lot of small farm agents right around the state, and many of them have different specialties, right? They're not all just livestock related, but we definitely want to have a conversation with that group. So looking to reconnect with the new leader of that group and see if we can get something going there.
When are you talking about the Center for Small Farms, that group, and like the transition between Gary and Lauren?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so Gary and I reached out, right, and we set stuff up under
Right,
Gary, and
and
then
then
he kind of
retired.
retired, right, and it kind of got stuck in the middle. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Happy to help.
Okay.
Continue that conversation. We work with them really closely.
okay, that would be great, thank you, yeah. Yeah, we had something scheduled with Gary, right, and then he handed it off, and the folks said, well, that's not gonna work for us. And
Mhm,
I'm trying to find a place where most of those small farm agents are all at one place at one time,
mhm.
right, for a staff meeting or something else that we could come in and have a conversation about this topic. Or if we have to, set up regional, we may have to do it regionally, and that's fine too. And I've had calls from individual small farm agents that, hey, I'm very interested in the topic and I really want to talk. And I've kind of put it off a little bit by saying, well, we're trying to do a bigger conversation with everybody at the same time. But we'll have to figure out what format works best. Thanks for any help on that. Any other questions about that outreach? Our website, we did take some things off our website, right? And because I made some changes, we have to get those posted back up there. So right now, I don't think there's a header on the website, but I don't think there's anything underneath it. So Andy's working on getting that back up there. All right. So Carrie and Mike, can we switch over to you to talk about water rights exemption for CAFO wastewater systems?
Yeah, we can do that. Let me do a share screen and see if this is gonna work. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, you're in presenting mode, I'm sorry, not in presenter mode, but we can see it. There we go.
Okay, I just want to make sure because every once in a while my monitors just don't work right. Okay, so I'm Carrie Cope. I'm the Water Management and Conservation Analyst and Reuse Coordinator for the department. And I'm going to be giving a really short presentation about registrations or reuse for confined animal feeding operations. Quick overview. This exemption is in statute 537-141 and ORS 537-545. Essentially, it says that basically it has to be groundwater, has to have first been legally used under a water right permit or certificate for a confined animal feeding operation. And at that point, it may be reused for irrigation, and it specifies just for irrigation without an additional water use permit. So in lieu of an actual permit, we do require a registration form and a map be provided. Both of which are on our website, which I'll get to later. To qualify, the following requirements must be met. The registrant must first have appropriated groundwater under a permit or certificate issued under ORS 537-625 or ORS 537-630 for a water right authorizing use of water for CAFO purposes. Essentially, those are our permit and our certificate statutes. The water must be reused for irrigation purposes only, and the period of irrigation during which the water is during which the water has never been discharged to waters of the state, because downstream water users might be counting on that water. And then is applied pursuant to a permit issued by ODA under ORS 468B.215. Boy, that is a mouthful of a statute. To register for an exemption from maintaining a formal permit, Water Resources has to have the following: must receive the following: a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System or a Water Pollution Control Facility permit number issued by the Oregon Department of Ag, a completed CAFO registration form signed by ODA, and a map that meets the requirements of OAR 690-310-0050, which is essentially our water right application statute. So it has to be of water right quality. meaning that it has to have township range, section, quarter, and then acreage indicated by hatching marks and actual like indication of how much acreage it is. And that is for our water master's benefit. This is just a snip of what the top of the form looks like. Obviously, I couldn't fit the entire form on here, but it is on our website. There's also this statute that gives the exemption for CAFOs is also the same exemption that applies to industrial reuse. So when you go and if you go and look at the statute, you'll see that it speaks to both the CAFO reuse and the industrial reuse. And both registration forms are on our website. It does have to be signed, dated. We have to permit number from ODA, or in the case of the industrial by DQ. And each entity using or intending to reuse CAFO water has to complete a separate registration form and submit it to ODA along with the application for their NPDES or WPCF permit respectively. So ODA will review the application, determine if the reuse is appropriate, and then send the signed application to me, the reuse coordinator in Salem. I'll typically review these within 60 days. A lot of times, unless we're super busy, it's a lot quicker than that. And then I'll send them a letter to the registrant documenting acceptance or denial. So usually it's an acceptance unless we're missing a map or something wasn't signed or it doesn't meet the requirements of the statute. Under ORS 537-141 and 537-545, both state the following: the use of water described in subsection 1 of this section. And again, this is speaking to both industrial and CAFO. The Department of Environmental Quality or the State Department of Ag shall provide to the Water Resource Department a copy of the permit issued under ORS 468B050 or 468.215, authorizing the land application of groundwater for reuse. So essentially, for CAFOs, Ag is the decision maker, the lead on this, and with DEQ, they are the lead on the reuse for industrial reuse. And then we just want to know where the water is going and how it's being used, and making sure that it doesn't contradict the statute. That's essentially what it is. The permit shall provide information regarding the place of use of such water and the nature of the beneficial reuse. And this provides the authority for both the registration form that we require and the map that we require. We get a lot of pushback about the map. So that's usually one of the hinge points for acceptance of these. A few takeaways: any water that's discharged from wastewater treatment plants or surface water body is automatically considered waters of the state, and that's because the water is being discharged and downstream water users might be relying on the water. This is the case even if it's within the boundaries of the entity's service area or property. This comes up a lot with municipalities. All use of wastewater must be either permitted or registered under one of the exceptions listed under ORS 537-141, 537-545, or 537-132. 537-132 has to do with our municipal reclaimed water exception. This is a link to the CAFO industrial reuse website, and then below that is the municipal reclaimed website. And that is about it. Any questions?
Yeah, we have a question here in the room.
Hi. This is Alice Morrison from BOF. So in the water use must have a water right associated with it or fall under the exemptions. Is the stock water exemption part of that list of statutes that you listed? I could look it up, but I hope if you know off the top of your head, that would be great.
You mean the 15,000 gallons a day?
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's under that same statute or not. I think it is. I think it is on 537, 541. I have a book right here if you want me to look it up.
Harry, you want me to take it?
Yeah, please, Mike.
Yeah, it's under 537, 545 for groundwater, which is the statute that was just slightly amended in this last legislative session.
Okay, so just to be clear, if you are, using water under the stock water exemption to water your animals and you capture that water, then you can apply for the reuse permit. You're not discharging that water into the water of the state and like any of the other uses of water, and you're capturing it. That was the point about discharge. I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Well, they're two separate exemptions. The ones that Carrie just covered for not needing the water right to land apply it. Then the stock water exemption is for the use of the stock water.
Right.
I think for stock water, I guess the way I would describe it is any leakage, right? So you get exempt water out of the ground and you put it in your water tank for
Right.
animals. And if it overflows or there's leakage or slop out from the animals, that waste part of that water could be, I believe, land applied under, could be collected, right, in the waste system.
Right,
land
as long as
applied.
it's collected.
Right, but I don't think you can pump water through your stock tank and then turn it into irrigation water.
Right. You could only use under the like industrial exemption, like, what is that, 5,000 gallons a day?
5,000 gallons a day.
Yeah, okay, just making sure.
I had a question about water that's used on the facility, but then went into a wastewater pond on site. Would that need an exemption, or is that already sort of exempted?
For the storage of it, before it's land applied, you mean? Is that what you're asking?
Land applying it after it's been stored in a lagoon.
Right, that's what Carrie was covering. So, and we don't require a storage permit for the lagoon itself.
But is it going through a wastewater treatment plant before you're land applying it?
A dairy that had manure lagoon, and so all the wash water and stuff would go into that lagoon. So it's start off as a fresh water, but then be in the lagoon and then used to irrigate the ground or from the manure pond.
Well, to register for an exemption, it needs to be permitted through ODA and have gone through a wastewater treatment.
Right, so our permit, right, one of the treatment systems, right, we'd have approved a permit for a dairy. Could be a lagoon, right?
Okay.
Manure and process wastewater storage lagoon. Right, so any rainfall that fell on that lagoon footprint once it was constructed. Any processed water that came out of the ground legally with the water right and then went through the dairy system and ended up in the lagoon as waste. Right, and then any manure they put up there, all that could be land applied without a water right, as long as it was registered with WRD.
And has been approved by ODA. I would also need the wastewater treatment plant, the WPCF or MPDS permit though.
Correct.
Yeah.
So once a CAFO registers for one of our permits, right, we fill out part of the form, which is the permit number. And then we approve the use, right? Farm built a tank or a lagoon or whatever storage system they have. And then WRD looks at the water, that the water is being used. The initial use of the water has to be with the water right.
Right.
But then the catchment, right, of the dairy facility, right, any stormwater, right, any precip that goes in there and is caught. And any waste from drinking water tank overflow or processed water after it's used to wash the milking equipment. And then goes into the waste system, right, and goes into the storage, that can all be land applied without a water right.
As long as ODA is signing off on it and providing the information on the registration form, then that it's not a problem essentially. Like I said, ODA is the lead on the CAFO reuse. We want to know where it's being applied, how it's being applied, and then of course we want to know if there are any other water right. We want to make sure that there is a water right, was a water right originally for the water, or you're applying under the exempt use of the, stock water exempt use.
Question. So a farmer could supply just the permit map or the certificate map, and that's good enough?
No,
No?
not, are you applying it in the exact same place where that certificate or permit originally allowed water use?
Yes,
Okay, then yes, that would suffice. The map going with the registration is supposed to show exactly where it's being land applied. So if one of our water masters is out driving around and they're like, huh, they're applying water, I wonder if they have a water right for that. You know, we want to be able to provide the map showing that this is an exempt use, essentially. So if it matches, then that's fine.
so what if they don't currently have a map? But there is a map in their permit file with the CAFO program, that doesn't work?
I'm not gonna, your job is to make sure that the registration's complete. You know, so you can request a copy of that map from our open records, you know, and then you can send it with the registration form. But it needs to be a complete registration and separate from your original water right application.
I think the only thing that's lacking, Bruce, in the CAFO maps that Water Resources needs for this exercise is we don't have quarter section descriptions. Right, we have a map of the fields that they're gonna land apply that material to, but we describe them as field 1, field 10, Fred's field, whatever. I think if you could add the list to put those section township range down to the quarter on those fields, and that would meet their need. That's part of the application.
Yeah, we want our water masters to be able to locate pretty easily where you're at, and we want to make sure that well, of course, these might eventually get entered into our water rights system inventory, like our actual database. So we want to be able to map them eventually if need be. And we do use a TRS QQ, so township range section quarter, and we want to know the acreage.
So these don't have to be prepared by a certified water right examiner?
No.
Okay.
No. And if you're not able to show it on the map because it's a large amount of land, you can actually just list it by quarter, the acreage as well. That's acceptable. I just need to be able to eventually enter it into our database so it can be tracked.
So a visual depicts, right, circle the area and then cross hatch the fields. And then a list of those descriptions of each one of those fields are. Right, and if it's whole sections or half sections or 80 acres, right? You just list those out in that section range township quarter section thing, yeah.
So there's a question online from Tammy Kerr.
Okay,
She says, will this presentation be shared with the meeting participants?
I can certainly send it to Wim and have him send it out to everybody. And if anybody has questions, they're welcome to email myself or Mike McCord.
yeah, the reason, and I really appreciate Mike and Tammy, Carrie presenting this. Because I just think it's kind of generally unknown. And historically, what's happened is when we get a new CAFO application, where that CAFO is proposing to build a storage facility, right, that's gonna catch precip, and they're gonna land apply any waste, right? Then we usually try to make sure that we contact the water master and start this application process. So I think a lot of them we've done kind of internally. We probably need to meet with WRD, right, and go down through our list to make sure that you have connections with everyone that we're aware of.
Yeah, it's been a little bit since you and I have met Wim, so.
Yeah. The other piece, right, is the dam safety water resource department dam safety thing, right? So if a facility meets the dam safety metrics, it is a statutory dam earthen facility, right? It's also registered with WRD under that program, a different program. But just wanted people to be aware that if you're constructing waste storage, right, a tank, a lagoon, I mean, it's not site specific of any size. And you use it for those purposes that you just talked about, right? Catching waste from a CAFO, right? It becomes a de facto water storage facility, right, that you can irrigate out without having to get an additional water right for that irrigation activity. So I know on, some of the conversations we've had with some of these smaller facilities, right, well, I don't have a water right. Or you go for irrigation, right, but I'd love to be able to irrigate some pasture. This is gonna be a way to, if you build that storage facility, to be able to use that water right without a water right. It's already it's already been appropriated with a water right initially. Right, and then the precept, right, you can select without a water right. And so that facility kind of serves more than one purpose. We may require it as a BMP for, for a water quality protection, but it has the potential secondary benefit that it allows, it allows you now to collect this stuff during the growing season. And just, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's irrespective of size, right, Carrie? There's no minimum size of storage facility, right? This is for any size facility, is that correct?
Yes, it's for any size facility.
All right, last opportunity for questions for Mike and or Carrie from WRD. All right, well, thank you so much, Mike and Carrie. Really appreciate the help, and we may get some questions and shoot them your way, and then we'll see if we can set up a time to coordinate and see if we can get our list up to date.
There is another
Oh,
question.
we have another question. Hang tight.
Is this a new requirement for all permit holders or for new permits only? Is the first part of the question, and then the second part is this from SB 85? Just trying to understand the process.
It's not new. How long has it been on the books, Carrie? It's definitely not new.
No, it's pretty darn old, actually. 537-132 goes back to 1971, and I think this one came about in the late 70s. So it's been on the books for a very long time. It's not new. It just isn't very well known.
Right. And I'll respond a little bit on the SB 85 piece. This conversation is coming up, right, because of SB 85, because CAFOs going forward are going to be required to submit a water supply plan. And that water supply plan is going to have to talk about, if they irrigate, right, where that water comes from. And so we want to make sure that we know all the water right requirements, right, and or exemptions if there are any. So that as we start looking at water supply plans at WRD in rural rights and ODA in rural rights starts creating what's going to be in that plan, we want to make sure that we can list out this, and this. And so this is, again, something that's not well known. And I think we've just taken it for granted because anytime we've had a facility construct a lagoon or a new manure storage tank, above ground or below ground, right, we've just added that onto the list with WRD. And it allows it to land apply any waste out there without a water right.
Can I ask a clarifying question about some related things in SB 85? So I understand that the nutrient application permit is only for people who are applying waste from a CAFO who are not the CAFO, so like third parties.
Correct.
And that, you have to have a plan to apply it agronomically and it's appropriate for the land. And that applying it agronomically is part of the waste plan for the CAFO permit. If the permit holder is the one applying the manure or whatever so it's like essentially that's wrapped into the CAFO permit, and we're just extending that to the third party in the nutrient application permit. But there's both the same requirements of agronomic and like land appropriate application on both sides, right?
That I'm actually not sure about. And the piece I'm not sure about is clearly within the bounds of the permitted CAFO and under their permit and that, and their registration right with WRD.
Yeah.
It could be land applied on those acres.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to export liquid waste out of their system to somebody in Oklahoma who needs this new permit that we haven't built yet, I'm not sure. I mean, that's going to be a question I think that we're going to have to look at and try to figure, does that legal bridge of the water right move across there or not? My guess is no.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think the only way that could work would be the NAP farmer, the person that has is land applying, would have to build a storage facility on their farm.
Right.
Right. And then the NAP permit would be the permit that we would give to WRD. And it would say they're land applying these materials, right? For crop growth, right, to provide nutrients and water for crop growth. And then WRD would have to weigh in and say, does that, is allowed. I think, remember, the key is the water has to come out of the ground with a legal water right to start with.
Right.
And what I'm not sure of is if farmer A has the water right, pulls water out of the ground, puts it in the lagoon that farmer A owns, and then tries to pump it to farmer B. And can farmer B say, hey, I can land apply that without a water right? That part I'm not sure about.
Once in the past, once it turned brown, water resources kind of washed their hands of it.
Yeah, that could
That's
be.
past, though I don't know what the current.
I don't know if you guys are writing that down or not. Or an answer already for that.
Okay, and and that would be a consideration only if the exported waste is liquid waste, as we would be still talking about this.
Yeah, I think solids are not in
Yes,
this
we're not talking about
conversation.
solids.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, the manner, time, manner, and rate of application of that water once it turns brown is included in the waste management plan for the CAFO if they're applying it to their own.
Correct,
Right? Okay,
correct.
cool. Just check. Thanks.
No, you're good.
It's a can of worms.
Yeah,
It's a lot of nuance.
yeah. So I guess stay tuned, right, because our agency will be making rules on 85, and I'm sure Water Resources will be at the table with us when we do that, and likely doing their own rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so have to start thinking about those different scenarios, right?
Do we have any, maybe this is later in the agenda, do we have any updates on the timeline for that rulemaking?
No.
Okay,
I have letters of the invites ready to send out, so that's good. The next step is to get them out.
great.
Yeah.
And we don't have a rule schedule yet. We've got a lot of rules going on right now. This one hasn't made its way to the table yet. So yeah, at some point in time, we just need to catch up with WIM and others on, where everything's at, where the new CAFO applications that were in the process, where they're at with us and with ODA. And it's new enough that we haven't done that yet.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. All right, last call for questions or comments on this. All right, thanks again, Mike and Carrie, really appreciate it. You're welcome to hang out with us and find out more things CAFO here. All right, Stephanie, are you ready to go?
I am.
All right, we got Stephanie Page from OWEB, who's going to talk about another piece where we depend on other agencies to provide technical and financial assistance to CAFOs, both existing and proposed. So take it away, Stephanie. Thank you.
And I think Christy loaded in my slides, but I'll just go ahead and get started while those are fitting. There we go. Perfect. So I'll do a very quick OWEB 101. Oh, and I should introduce myself before I launch into my slides. I'm Stephanie Page, and I'm the Deputy Director at the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. I used to work at ODA for about 22 years before I moved over to OWEB about 2 years ago. So have the pleasure of getting to work with many of you, including Wim and Christy. I started my career at a soil and water district, and I think Bruce was one of my conservation planning trainers when I was there, and I've known Tom for a long time too. So it's great to get to see so many familiar faces. I'll do a very quick OWEB 101, and then I'll talk about some examples of projects that OWEB funds, and then kind of how to learn more or how to pursue a project if that's something of interest to anyone on this meeting today. Okay, we can go to the next slide. I won't read OWEB's mission, but basically there are 3 important parts to OWEB's mission. One is supporting healthy watersheds and fish and wildlife habitat. There's also an important part of our mission about supporting healthy communities and strong economies. So it's really that triple bottom line that we are trying to support with the projects that we fund. Okay, next slide. OWEB is a relatively young agency. We were created in the late 1990s, and around that same time, There were a variety of fish species that were proposed for listing under the Endangered Species Act, and there was a lot of concern about declining salmon runs and watershed health. And so it originally was the Governor's Watershed Enhancement Board, which eventually became the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board and a standalone agency. We were funded initially with a time-limited ballot measure that Oregonians approved to support lottery dollars for parks and salmon. And then that funding was made permanent through a ballot measure that passed in 2010 called Measure 76. Historically, about a third of OWEB's grant funding that we administer came from Measure 76 lottery dollars. And those are really directed to watershed health and fish and wildlife habitat. And then about a third of the funds that we historically administered were federal Pacific Coast salmon recovery dollars. Those are very focused, as you might guess by the name, on salmon recovery and salmon habitat. So in recent years, first of all, with the Measure 76 dollars, we continue to support salmon recovery, but we've also expanded what we've supported with those dollars over time to include things like sage grouse habitat on the east side, juniper control projects that help support healthy watersheds, and other projects that look at upland species in addition to salmon. And then another trend recently is that we've received quite a bit of general funds from the Oregon legislature for different new programs. Some of those have been, again, time-limited programs. We got some funding in 2021 and 2022 for drought relief and post-wildfire recovery. And we've committed those funds now. And so we're continuing to work with the grantees as they get their projects done. And then we also got a new program called the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program that I'll talk about a little more later on in the presentation. Most recently, in the 2023 legislative session, we also got some funding for a new land acquisition grant program for source water protection or for drinking water protection. And then we are one of several agencies that's eligible for a new fund that supports carbon sequestration and climate smart activities on natural and working land. So we are working with several other agencies to figure out how those dollars will be distributed. Okay.
Stephanie and Wim,
Excuse me.
those of us on the call are not
We
able
can't-
to see your presentation. Sorry.
Share it on yours.
Thank you.
I don't have mine up. If I put mine up, it's gonna echo.
Hang on a second, we're working on things.
Because it's a draft,
Are you
it's
sharing?
not.
Are you sharing your screen? Or you just have it up on your screen? Are you sharing from the meeting? There we go. At the top,
Share content.
right by the red leaf,
The what?
up by the red leaf.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I clicked on and that
Oh, I can help you.
green. Split screen. Yeah.
And
I
then
think
go
you
back
just need to
to
pick
the-
which window you show. Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's sharing your whole screen right now, so as long as you put the presentation up, they should be able to see it.
But they don't let me touch that stuff.
Oh,
It might be still up behind the windows. Oh, there we go. I think they should be able to see it now because we've got that red box around the screen.
Does that work, folks, on the virtual? Can you see it now?
We can see, yeah, now we can. Thank you.
thank you.
Happens all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I've had just about every technical difficulty you can imagine, especially in the virtual world. So, yeah, that's great. Okay, I think we're ready to go to the next one. Okay, so I think the main take home from this slide is that OWEB has regional staff in every region of the state. So you see our regions there on the map. We have staff who we call regional program representatives, and they work with groups like soil and water districts and watershed councils, tribes, land trusts, and other organizations in their communities, just to help get the word out about OWEB grants and then provide help to folks if they're considering applying for an OWEB project, or just wanting to understand the programs better. And then the 5 sections of the agency currently are shown across the bottom there. So, but basically what we do at OWEB is we administer grants. That is what we do. We give grants out to local partners, and I'll talk a little bit more about who some of those eligible grant recipients are here in a little bit. Okay, we can go on to the next slide. Oh, great. Okay. And then this slide shows our board. So an 18-member board is a pretty large board. We have one of the larger boards in state government. And the reason it is so large is because we work really closely with all of the different organizations you see reflected up here. So we work very closely with several federal natural resource agencies, and we work really closely with other state natural resource agencies. So much so that there are 5 state agency boards and commissions that have a seat on the OWEB board. So Barbara Boyer is the representative from the Board of Agriculture who's on the OWEB board, just as an example. Let's see else. I think that was the main thing I wanted to mention there, but just that level of interagency collaboration. And one other thing I'll mention too is that OWEB doesn't really set our own priorities in terms of what we're going to fund. We are here to support state priorities and community priorities in terms of what are the needs in communities and what are the needs for fish and wildlife and water quality and so forth around the state. So we really are here to support our sister state agencies and the communities that use our funding. Okay, can go on. Great. So on the left side of this slide, there's a list of eligible grantees and partners. These are the groups that are eligible to apply for OWEB grants. In many cases, whole batches of the groups on the left will work together to submit a proposal to us. So we see a lot of collaboration in communities. And then on the right side of this slide are other folks who are really important partners in OWEB projects, but they themselves are not eligible to apply. So state and federal agencies are not eligible to apply directly to OWEB for grants. Private landowners and private businesses are not eligible to apply, but Oregon really depends on private landowners as well as public land managers being willing to partner with us and do projects on the lands that they manage. So that was really the whole reason, back to that slide about OWEB's history, that we came into being, is we are here to support the Oregon Plan for Salmon and Watersheds. We're here to help provide incentives for some of those actions that help recover salmon and sage grouse and other fish and wildlife species and help provide for clean water and so forth. So they are even though they are not eligible, they are very, very important partners. We couldn't do our work without them. And really, same for the partners on the left. The way we deliver OWEB's mission is through those local groups who apply for grants and then partner with people in their communities to get projects on the ground. And so for folks here today, I'll mention this a couple more times during the presentation, but for folks here today that might be thinking they're interested in a project, the groups on the left are really the places to start. Any of these organizations are eligible to apply for an OWEB grant and can work with folks in their communities to develop a project. Okay, we can go to the next slide. This is just to give you a sense of the distribution of the projects that we funded and the scale of projects that we fund. So we funded a little over 2,000 projects in Oregon within the last 5 years. At any given time, I think we roughly have about 1,200 grant funded projects open. So they're in the process of getting completed. So that just gives you a sense, but it is really important to us to support projects all over the state. And it's something that we grade ourselves on, is have we funded, out of all of Oregon's counties, how many counties have we supported projects in within a given year? Okay, go on. This like shows just some of OF's grant programs, and I would not worry or try to keep track of all the program names, because I think the most important thing is for anybody who's interested in an OF grant is what kind of project do you want to do. But really, we've tried to develop grant programs that serve the needs of the local partners and the communities that they work in. And so sometimes folks ask us, why do you have so many different programs? And it's really because we've heard from folks that, hey, your existing programs don't completely work for us. We have this need, and we would really like you to develop a program to address it. So just a few kind of unique things that we fund at OWEB that are, I think, are difficult to find in the funding world are monitoring grant programs. We have a grant program that supports different kinds of monitoring. It can include status and trend monitoring. So kind of how is water quality doing in a watershed, or how is a specific species faring in a watershed over time. It can help folks look at whether a project was effective or not. It can help support things like pre and post project monitoring. So those are a couple of examples of monitoring projects we fund. We've got a small grant program, and that involves working very closely with some of those partners I mentioned on the last slide. It's I guess a lower administrative burden program for the ultimate recipients, and you can get a grant of up to $15,000 for a small project. So like a manure storage project is an example of a project that program could fund. There's also, I mentioned a relatively new program to OWEB, and that is the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program. That program was created in 2017, and it wasn't funded for grants until the 2022 legislative session. And during that session, OWEB received $5 million for grants for conservation easements and covenants and conservation management plans. And we awarded all of the grant funding available from that $5 million investment in the first round of funding. So we had conservation easement projects that requested more than the total funding that we had available. We awarded grants to everybody who submitted a proposal. We reduced the amount of one, and then funded 2 conservation management planning projects that had come in. There are other components to that program too. There's a technical assistance grant, and then there's a grant that supports transition from in ownership. So that can be from one generation to a next, or from an existing farmer to a new farmer. So that's a program that provides that farm transition planning assistance. So currently, we don't have any additional funding in the program beyond what is committed in the grants. But if the program were to get more funding, there are 4 components, 4 types of grants that could be funded. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Oh, and actually, one other program I should mention, and you don't need to go back, don't worry about that. But one other program that OWEB administers is called the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, and that might be one of interest potentially to CAFOs, as well as other farmers and ranchers. That is a collaborative program between the state and the federal government, and it provides rental payments as well as covers part of the cost to restore a streamside area. So just as an example, somebody could take a streamside area out of production. I think the minimum buffer width is 35 feet, if I remember correctly, and the program will help pay for part of the cost to fence out the area, to replant the area, to do ongoing maintenance as the plantings are getting started. And then the program also provides a per acre rental rate. So that program has been around for a while, and OWEB covers the state's part of the contributions to that program. So that's kind of a unique one that we have that's also available. Some other examples of projects we have funded and do fund on a pretty regular basis, culvert or tide gate replacement projects that provide fish passage. That is one that we fund pretty frequently. Any kind of project that helps restore wildlife habitat. So that could include controlled burning to reestablish oak habitat, for example, that's had Douglas fir grow up through it. It could include rangeland restoration on the east side to provide better habitat for sage grouse or other species, or it could include a wetland restoration or a seasonal wetland restoration for migrating waterfowl. So those are just a few examples of that. I mentioned the Oregon Ag Heritage Program, that it supports conservation easements and plans, as well as other elements that are supportive of farm and ranch land protection. So that's another one that, again, if we don't have new funding available, but it is possible the program could get funding in the future. Irrigation modernization. And this includes a bunch of different examples of projects. This could be everything from piping a canal or a lateral within an irrigation district, because irrigation districts are another type of organizations that's eligible for OEB grants, all the way to replacing flood or furrow irrigation with a pivot or a drip system. So those are some examples there. And putting a portion of the saved water back in stream. That is one of the requirements of many of our grant programs. Forest health projects. So we've got some funding that's going to partners in Ashland and then in a section of the Rogue to help do forest health projects to prevent catastrophic wildfire. So not only helping improve stand health, but protecting the city of Ashland that's kind of ringed by forest. Streamside fencing and tree planting. I mentioned the CREP program is one source of funding for those projects, but we have other types of grants that go to support that kind of work. Land and water acquisitions. This isn't always, or this is one I would say that involves extra community engagement in some parts of the state. It's not always a fit in the community, but it is something sometimes that's a great fit. And we have funded quite a few land and water acquisitions. That can mean an organization buys a piece of land outright for fish and wildlife habitat. It can mean an organization secures a conservation easement over a piece of land that stays in private ownership. Water acquisitions can mean a variety of different things. It can mean all the way from an organization purchasing a water right and that water going in stream, all the way to a program in Wasco County that OEB supports that monitors stream flows and notifies irrigators to turn off their irrigation if stream flows get too low and risk temperatures that aren't acceptable for fish. So a lot of different types of projects can fit within that program. And then the last example I have on the list are projects that support noxious weed control or juniper control. And we partner with ODA on the noxious weed grants. Those grants are administered by ODA and they're allocated by the ODA weed board. So we work really closely with the folks in plant protection and conservation programs at ODA. I gotta remember the section name there. All right, you can go to the next slide. I think this is my last slide. So basically, if you're a CAFO and you want to find out more about any of the programs or example projects that I just rattled off, the best way to find out more is to connect with one of the partners that I mentioned on the slide. That can be, and it really depends who you've got a relationship with and who you feel comfortable working with in your community, but it can include a soil and water conservation district, a watershed council, a tribe, a land trust, some other type of nonprofit. Folks like the Nature Conservancy and Trout Unlimited, for example, submit grant proposals to us, Sustainable Northwest, on a fairly regular basis. Other local governments like irrigation districts. So yeah, lots of different types of groups are eligible for OEB grants. If you don't know who to start with in your community, and that sounds like kind of an overwhelming list, you're also welcome to reach out to one of our regional staff. And I just put a link up here to get folks started connecting with OEB, but Wim and Christy have my contact information. If you're not sure where to start and you wanted a referral to some options in your community, you're welcome to reach out to me and I can get you connected with one of our staff.
So it sounds like an individual CAFO who's interested in something would have to step under the umbrella of some larger organization that was already doing something, or ask around to start something. But
Yes, that's right. Yep, they could work, just as an example, like for somebody in Tillamook, they could reach out to the Tillamook Soil and Water Conservation District. And that the district would be an eligible applicant. So
I expect they could also create something that would be described as a non-profit, right? So let's say on one river in Tillamook, there's 10 CAFOs and they want to all band together on a watershed basis, or just because they're all dairies or what. It probably doesn't matter what the basis is, as long as they met a what's requirement for the entity, right? Could they create an entity like that?
I suppose they technically could. I think the challenge would be they would need to put together an application, and then they would need to use our ongoing grant management online system and financial management system. So that's,
Okay.
they could, not that they couldn't learn to do that. That would, we've tried to make our systems user friendly, but the benefit of partnering with one of the other groups is they already know how to do all of that. They've worked with our fiscal folks. They know what kinds of documentation we need and so forth. So that is usually what folks do, but I wouldn't rule out what you're suggesting either, Win. Yeah.
The other thing I was gonna say is that I've seen instances where, using a district as an example, a district didn't have capacity, right,
Yeah.
to write the grant.
Yeah.
But they said they would assist in administrative, right, do their reporting.
Yep.
Right, but they needed it written by an outside entity, right, and presented to them kind of in a ready to go format. And so there again, that's for that group, hired somebody or did it themselves,
Definitely.
moved it through. But some districts have capacity, some not as much.
Yep. Yeah, I can think of a great example of that. I think it's the Malheur Watershed Council that sometimes uses a contractor to write grants for them. And as they're partnering with private landowners in the community. So yeah, that folks could certainly do that.
I represent a nonprofit organization who often has farmers coming to us and are like, hey, we want to do all these projects and we're very involved in the OCFSN drought resilience funding that came through and such. And I would like to talk to you about like how maybe people could match that funding through the NoWeb grant and do more drought. We'll talk later, but
Yeah, that's great.
I was just wondering if an entity like a nonprofit applies on behalf of a group of farmers in a specific area to do a specific project, is it allowed for the nonprofit to pass through those funds to the landowners to manage the project, or would we have to like manage the contractors and all of that kind of thing internally?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Let me double check with our staff. I think what you're saying would work.
Okay.
I think you would be able to do that, but I will double check and then I'll send Wim and Christy an email with the information. So you're saying if you got a grant, say for irrigation modernization projects on a group of farms, could the farmers do the project management and oversee the contract, or could one of the farmers do that?
Like we could oversee like the contract with OWEB, but in terms of like subcontracting, like if we needed to bring in an irrigation business who was going to build the system for us or something, could the farmer whose land it's happening on oversee that particular contract?
Definitely. Yeah, just
want to make sure like how far
No,
we have to have our hands in it to be the sponsoring agents.
Yeah, no, I think I'll talk through an example that I think is similar to what you're saying. I mean, we just supported a bunch of irrigation modernization grants in the Klamath Basin, for example. And so we awarded a grant to, I think it was Sustainable Northwest. So they worked with a landowner. I think the landowner hired JW Kearns to do the design and provide the equipment. But yeah, and so then ultimately the reimbursement went to the landowner who was responsible to pay for the project and then get reimbursed.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I think that's similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what you're saying would work.
Cool.
Yeah.
So individuals cannot be the applicant, but we can pass through funds to individuals to do the project as part of the plan.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Or yeah, a landowner could hire a contractor to come on and do tree planting, for example, and then the group would reimburse the landowner for their costs. That could, that is a model of how you could do it. Yeah. Thank you. I think someone said something about match, and actually that's something I should mention. For our restoration grants, there is a 25% match requirement. For some of our other programs, we just reduced our match down to $1 just to help make them more accessible. Yeah. So it just depends which program, what the match requirements are. And match can include cash match, it can include in-kind. Some of the agencies that I mentioned that aren't directly eligible to apply to us, they can provide in-kind match and sometimes do. So those are, yeah.
Sorry, I have so many questions. When it comes to match dollars, I know like if you're applying to a USDA grant, for example, you cannot use your match as other federal funds.
Right.
Can the match for OWEB grants be other state funds from a different? For example, if someone applied for a drought resilience mini grant from the OCFSN Drought Resilience Fund, could they use that funding, which came from the state, to match the restoration program for OWEB?
Oh, let me get back to you on that one too. I think so, but I want to double check.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions from the group and in the chat, or live questions from the virtual group?
Let me get back to it. So, no, Mike McCord was just left a message saying that if there were any questions to get a hold of him, and he put his phone number in there.
You're plugging in correct, so you can not lose.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do, but I'd have to switch everything.
All right, last chance for questions. Any in the room? Online? All right, thanks so much, Stephanie. Super helpful. I know. Yeah, there's been, facilities out there that have taken advantage of the program right throughout the years, and it's not size dependent, right? So little tiny projects or great big projects, or a big pot of money that's divided up into many smaller facilities.
Wait for a second, and then we'll come back on. I think.
Great to have the technical and financial assistance right now.
It's gonna die.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'll follow up on the questions, and if you think of any other questions, just give me a call. All right, well, thanks for just you to come visit.
Thank you so much.
Through your computer.
Just
All
wondering if
right.
maybe I can do it through this.
Oh.
So now we're gonna hopefully introduce some new NRCS partners. And let me see if I can see who's on board here. All right, so I wanted to take just a minute or two to introduce Amy Hendershot. Right, Amy is brand new with NRCS here in Oregon, but she does come with a lot of experience from NRCS in Washington. And so I'm going to let Amy introduce herself and to kind of tell her what her role is. She and I have just met virtually, right, but haven't spent any quality time together yet. We hope to do that in the future to try to reconnect our agencies together, right? Because we depend on NRCS for a lot of things. All the practice standards and engineering that NRCS produces are approved, straight across approved in our nutrient management plans. We permit just a little over 500 CAFOs in our state right now, Amy, and so that's kind of the workload that I work with. And we've got facilities of all shapes, sizes, and colors. So looking forward to meeting you in person. And if you could introduce yourself and give us any NRCS updates you got, that'd be wonderful.
Sure. Could I ask who's ever presenting my picture back to me to stop presenting? It's very unnerving. Thank you. That's much better. Now I can actually see the people in the room too. All I could see was my own face, which was, it's like hearing your own voice. It's always a strange sensation. So anyway, hello everybody. My name is Amy Hendershot. I and now work with NRCS Oregon out of the Portland office. My title is State Resource Conservationist, and what that means is I'm in charge of the technical arm of the agency for the state of Oregon. I grew up in the Puyallup Valley in Washington State, just north, not too far north of us, and actually grew up right next to a dairy that had a creamery on site. It was an organic Holstein operation. So dairy is part of my everything. Went to college at Washington State University. Go Cougs. It's hard to say in Oregon. But then moved throughout the state. So I worked on the eastern side of Washington State and then back on the western side, and now I'm here. So I've worked extensively with confined animal feeding operations throughout the course of my career in several capacities, both at the land grant university level when I worked for Washington State University. As a soil and water conservation district employee, I worked with AFO CAFOs and then with NRCS, which I've now been with NRCS for 15 years. Predominantly, I've worked with dairies, so that is kind of will be my, just so you all know, that will be sort of my mental focus when I talk about AFO CAFOs. In my head, I picture dairies, but I know that they're not limited to that. So I've been in Oregon since March, and I am looking forward to building a robust partnership and relationship and figuring out how we can work together to get the resources and needs out on the field in the hands of our producers as much as possible. Wim, does that kind of give a good little summary of intro?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Amy. Yeah, it's just historically, folks, when I worked in Washington for 10 years before I came to Oregon, right, we had a really strong relationship with NRCS. I worked for the Conservation Commission in the districts, right, and jointly, right, really did a lot of technical financial projects, right, on dairy facilities. So looking to try to energize that relationship right back here in Oregon again.
Yeah, and I can speak to a little. Wim, I can speak to a little bit of that energizing I've been doing since I got here in March. I know that would probably be valuable for the group. So, yeah, Wim had spoken to a lot of the successes of the partnerships that existed in Washington. I had funneled throughout my 15 years with NRCS up there about $20 million to the dairy industry just in my counties that I worked in. So I'm working on facilitating those connections with industry here. Tammy, who's on the call, I've met several times, talking about how we might be able to partner internally to make some connections there. But one thing that has come to mind or has come up is limited ability for a lot of our AFO CAFOs to access NRCS resources, both financial and technical, here in Oregon. So this year, we will be, and we have advertised a program that is available to everybody. I will put the link in the chat here of those funding opportunities, and we are using our Inflation Reduction Act allocation from Congress. It is directed to be spent on climate-supported agriculture practices. And so I have built us a AFO CAFO, basically an account of funds that will specifically be earmarked towards AFO CAFOs. If they're not spent, they'll go to the very eager Columbia Basin, likely wheat growers and other producers across the state of Washington. But if you follow that link, you can click on, for AFO CAFOs, there's an option for animal feeding operations that encompasses all of the conservation practices that we can fund that I've been able to make a tie to climate with and that the executive branch supports. So there's a lot of opportunities there that maybe have not been available historically for a number of years here in Oregon. There's also an energy pot of funds. So in that energy account, have a look at that too, because I know this group probably focuses a lot on manure, storage, application, management, transference, those kinds of things. But that energy, energy consumption is a big on farms as well. And so we wanted to make sure that we addressed that with these climate funds as well. There's opportunities there for scrapers, just plate coolers, just lots of things that could be done on AFO CAFOs to really reduce energy and save some money there. So there's a couple options there. Yeah, so for the first time in a long time, I pushed hard to make sure that those opportunities were available statewide. So please get the message out on that. We recognize internally that our capacity is very limited We've had a lot of turnover in the agency. Our state director has retired. A lot of my coworkers have moved on to new positions along with our state director leaving. So there's a lot of new people like me coming onto the scenes who are bringing their experiences from other places. And, you know, we're all trying to figure out what will work best for Oregon and what is best for Oregon. So input from all of you will be super valuable, and I will be definitely looking to Wim a lot for his input on what's needed, where the barriers are, and where our agency can interface or provide support. We've got a ton of financial support. I'm talking direct payments in excess of $60 million this year directly to our agricultural communities. We enter into agreements directly with producers to do work, to do conservation on the farm. So we've got a lot of opportunity this year, more than we've ever had in any year that I can ever even think of. So this is our year, and we will be looking to industry to really help us partner to get those resources in the hands of the folks who really need them. We are also running a training. If you're not aware, for us to be able to access any project that stores, handles, or transfers manure, you have got to have a comprehensive nutrient management plan on file with our office. That's it's a pretty high level required plan. It's very robust, and I think it does not line up directly with the state's requirements of the state nutrient plan. So I'll be holding a training to train staff and any other folks who want that training. So I'll be looking to industry if they'd like to send people, or, you know, private sector, anyone at DOA, you know, whoever would like to attend that training to be able to write those plans to help our AFO-CAFO community access those funds. Trying to set up a system where we're getting people trained to write the products that we need and then help folks access those funds. So please reach out to me. I will put my email address in the chat. I do not have a fancy presentation, I am sorry. But that probably covers with my introduction and my agency update at the same time. So thank you all. Any questions for me?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Really appreciate that. And yeah, no, that's kind of music to our collective ears, right? We want to kind of return to the relationship that we had with the agency, you know, I'd say 8 or 10 years ago. We usually had an annual technical meeting, right? That our tech staff, district tech staff, and NRCS tech staff would meet, right, to talk about what's coming down the road, right, and what new technological innovation is out there. I'd like to re-energize that. Did get an email from Mitch, I think, right, the new state agronomist. And,
yes, he's our acting state agronomist, so that position is actually vacant, and I was very fortunate to get Mitch to fill in for 4 months, so it will be vacant again.
Okay.
So we are actively looking for an NRCS agronomist.
Okay, so we'll make sure we have attendees, and I can speak at that training and provide the state, regulatory overview. And app there too. So thank you so much for putting that on. And then I just want to emphasize, right, the amount of money coming through NRCS that will go directly to farmers is an unprecedented amount, right? And this window is open for, months, right? Maybe a year or two, but not 10 years. And so I think it's just really imperative that we make sure all of our permittees or potential permittees are aware of it. Could come through the district stores and the NRCS stores, right? And probably our biggest need, Amy, right, is the planning assistance piece, right? The CNMP hurdle that we can talk about, and the planning assistance, and we're all getting older, right? And so that's we need the younger generation folks in kind of the planning and assistance roles. So that they can access those financial pieces, right? Without that plan, we can't get through the door. So any help there would be much appreciated.
Yeah, so for our fiscal year 24, sign up is sign up prior to November 17th. So this conversation is very timely. We are, we'll still be taking applications, but probably won't review them until the following fiscal year unless we need additional applications.
Okay.
We'll review those. So we expect IRA funds through 2028, but we'll be sunsetting by then. So this year, next year, these are our big years ramping up. So yeah, this is the time. And then also, I mean, that technical capacity, Wim, I mean, you have just hit the nail on the head. That is our Achilles heel right now. So finding, and we're not going to be able to hire ourselves out of it. We are in our hiring process is not great. The federal government's hiring process is not great. It takes a long time, and we are at, our HR staff are understaffed as well. So we really need to enter into partnership agreements and look to our partners to help us build that capacity. I am reaching out to folks for agreements and partnerships to find people who can help us write those CNMPs very actively, because I know that's the weak spot. So yeah, if you've got ideas, if you know people, if you've got an organization that has interest in providing that service, please reach out to me and we can be creative. Because this is not a service NRCS can provide currently, we can be very financially generous to ensure that this sector of our agricultural community gets the attention and the support that it needs. So thanks, Wim.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Did I just miss when you said that training was coming for the CNMP?
CNMP, yeah. So a part of it will be virtual, and then part of it will be on. Right, we're setting up the details. Part of it will be virtual, part of it will be on farm. I'm thinking probably the Salem area on a conventional dairy and then an organic dairy, just to see kind of both perspectives of how, the management is a little bit different sometimes. So yeah, so we're right now I'm querying our internal staff to see what the needs are internally. So if you have someone who has interest in attending that, please just reach out to me directly and we'll figure out the best way to get that training or figure out how to connect with that person.
I'm interested, so I will reach out to you.
Thank you.
You could be a technical service provider.
Or we could enter into a direct agreement with you to provide the service, and we can circumvent the technical service provider process fully. I mean, I am looking for real solutions to get meaningful support to these customers right now. So, and I know the TSP process is, I mean, I don't know if folks in this, I don't know if that's Bruce right there that I'm looking at, but Bruce, he can speak to the technical service provider process, but it's broken in my opinion, and so it's not a really fabulous process. So until the agency fixes that, I'm going to be looking for other solutions to get around it. So
Does CCA, did they get a free pass, right? If you're a certified crop advisor or certified professional agronomist, didn't NRCS adopt that's some kind of equivalency there?
no, not that I'm aware of it. You would still need to submit a CNMP for review to become certified. Yeah, but certainly those folks who are CCAs and have those qualifications are going to have a much easier time at the training. So
yeah. All right. Thanks, Amy. Really appreciate your time and spending with us.
Wim.
We will spread the word, and thank you so much.
Okay, take care, all.
All right, take care.
Bye.
That's good news.
All right, so we're gonna go to the partner update piece. It's kind of 2:50. I think we're a little behind schedule, but not bad. And I do know that Nick Peak with EPA Region 10 had an update. So I'm gonna go to Nick first. Nick, if you're online on the phone,
Yeah,
to you, and then open the floor to other folks after you're done.
sure. Thanks, Wim. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Peak. I'm the Ag Advisor for EPA Region 10. I'm over here in Boise, Idaho. I've been on here many times in the past, so I'll just kind of dive into my updates. Let me open my notes here. The first one that I want to touch on is more specific to Idaho, but it kind of has national and regional implications, and that's the Idaho NPDES CAFO general permit that we proposed on July 18th. This permit was proposed in response to an appeal by several environmental organizations in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which appealed the permit on the basis of very simply stating it, monitoring discharges, groundwater discharges with a direct hydrologic connection to surface water from waste storage ponds, and monitoring surface water discharges and groundwater discharges with a connection from land application areas. And so we proposed in the Federal Register on July 18th the modified permit. That permit was on public notice until September 1st. We received a lot of comments. We received comments from the Idaho Dairymen's Association, from the South Dakota DNR, from environmental groups, specifically Food and Water Watch, Snake River Waterkeeper, Center for Biological Diversity, and the Center for Food Safety, and then one comment from Idaho NRCS. We haven't typically done this in the past, but we did post all of the public comments online on our website. And so if folks are interested, after I get done talking, I'll stick that link into the chat for the meeting here. We had several requests from commenters as well as those beyond the commenters to get copies of those comments. And so rather than going through the FOIA process, we made sure to redact any personal information if needed and then posted those online. So those are available to take a look at. And I think they're interesting if folks need some pretty, not light reading, but some reading that might put you to sleep maybe. But some of the public comments that we got, we are currently sorting through them. The bulk of the public comments were from the environmental groups, and we've kind of lumped them into different categories of comments. We've got some general or background comments dealing with groundwater discharges, land application, the functionally equivalent discharges, that deals with the Maui decision, as well as general comments on regulations or documentation supporting monitoring at CAFOs. We did get some specific comments on the specific permit requirements, which was really what we were looking for. And those comments were broken into categories regarding general monitoring requirements, subsurface monitoring requirements, subsurface discharge monitoring plans, which was part of a proposal in the permit, dry weather discharge monitoring requirements, land application, subsurface discharge monitoring, affordability, and then reporting requirements. So that's a lot there, but we're currently sorting through those comments. They're mostly sorted at this point, and we're going to start working on our final draft response to comment document, and hopefully get that published within the next several months. Hopefully by the beginning of the next calendar year. So stay tuned for that. I know there's a lot of interest in it, and I know there's some applicability in Washington and Oregon. So we're taking our time, but we're also trying to get this done as quick as possible, just because it's been a long, drawn out process responding to the Ninth Circuit decision. So I'll just stop real quick there and see if there's any questions. Okay. My second update, and this will be my final one, is it deals with two petitions that EPA received at a national level, and our denial of those two petitions. So on August 15th of this year, the agency denied two petitions that were sent in by many environmental and community groups asking for EPA to revise the Clean Water Act regulations and the NPDES CAFO program. And not coincidentally, the environmental groups were the same environmental groups that appealed the Idaho permit, and then there were several others. And so this decision that came out in August of 2023, it was in response to some litigation in October of 2022, where EPA agreed to a court-approved deadline to respond to a 2017 petition that was signed by the same environmental and community groups. Also, towards the end of 2022, there was an additional second petition that EPA received, and EPA also denied that petition at the same time as denying the 2017 petition. Part of that denial, it's a lengthy letter that deals with the denial, but part of that denial, or part of the response, the agency announced it's going to conduct a comprehensive evaluation of its CAFO program that includes the issues raised by the two petitions. And What that evaluation is called a Effluent Guidelines Program Plan 15. These plans are put out pretty frequently. And typically the effluent limitation guidelines, which are kind of the requirements for different NIPTES programs, are reviewed every 5 years, and the CAFO program has needed to have a review for quite some time. So that's part of the Plan 15 that was released in January of 2023. And so again, this is going to be a detailed study about whether or not to revise the regulations for CAFOs. It's also going to focus on collecting more information, so the agency can make a reasoned decision about whether or not to undertake a rulemaking to revise those ELGs. And so this is kind of step one, the study, and step two, if the study makes it apparent, is that the agency will undertake a rulemaking revision. So it's a drawn out process. I've heard 2 years to get the study done, so it's not going to be a quick thing, but that will be floating out there in the background for the next couple of years. As part of the response as well, the agency established a new subcommittee under the existing Farm, Ranch, and Rural Communities Federal Advisory Committee. This subcommittee is called the Animal Agriculture Water Quality Subcommittee. And in the future, hopefully this fall, the agency is going to put out a call for nominations to try to get a bunch of different stakeholders to serve on this subcommittee to help inform the agency about its CAFO regulations and what does and doesn't work. So the agency really is committed to working with diverse stakeholders. This doesn't just include environmental groups; it also includes industry groups. There's a wide spectrum of folks that the agency wants to work with. Stay tuned on that. I did talk to headquarters earlier today, and they gave me a wide list of what they're looking for, and they're looking for this subcommittee specifically owners or operators of CAFOs. Other industry groups, growers or producers, environmental groups, states, tribes, local government officials, whether that's county, municipal, extension agents. So if there's university folks out there that have good experience and the agency is interested in that. And what I was told is that they really want to focus on who's implementing these regulations or working with these regulations on a day-to-day basis. And figuring out what does and doesn't work as owners or operators or states or tribes or whoever it may be works to try to implement these regulations. And so that call for nominations will come out here in the near future, hopefully within the next several months or couple months. And folks can self-nominate themselves, from what I've heard. And it's going to be a 45-day period. As that nomination process will be open for 45 days. So I think they're taking it serious about trying to figure out what is and isn't working as part of these regulations. And of course, once that all comes out, I'll be sure to share that with folks at WIM and his staff as well as others. The last thing I just wanted to mention is, so the agency did deny the 2 petitions in early September 9th. The same environmental and community groups filed a petition for review with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And so those 2 denial petitions are going to be litigated. And so, it's early in the process, but that'll be playing out for the next several months, as well as a hearing in front of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals about the denial of those 2 petitions. And I'll go ahead and stop there, Wim. Those are kind of my 2 updates for the day.
Yeah, a lot of meat in that, Nick. Thank you so much. And as soon as a nominating opportunity, right, is open for the subcommittee, I think we definitely have some interest from some Oregon producers and some Oregon folks. So I'll try to make sure we get names to you.
Yeah, that would be good. We've only the bigger committee that this is a subcommittee of only has 1 representative from the Pacific Northwest. So when the nomination period opens, my goal is to get some better representation from the Pacific Northwest. Operations are different out here than they are in other parts of the country, and I think we need to have some better representation out there.
Perfect. The other, I just Wonder if you had heard anything on the name study, right? I know they're talking about some product in 2024 coming up. Anything new on that?
No, last I heard, they had their last draft methodologies kind of finalized, and we're sifting through the information. It's been kind of in a dark hole like it has been for 10 years, it seems like. And so I haven't had any recent information come out on that. I do know that they went through a shift in staffing as in terms of who was heading up the study, that I think it took a little time out of, or took a little wind out of their sails. But I expect to hear something soon, and typically I hear pretty quick. And as soon as I hear something that's publicly releasable, I'll definitely let folks know.
Okay. Yeah, our 2023 legislature passed a bill, Senate Bill 85.
Yep.
And one of the things the agencies have to do, right, is to monitor the name study completion. And upon completion, right, the agencies have, I think, 18 months to provide a report, a review, and a report back to our legislature on it. So.
Gotcha.
For that.
I could offer, Wim, that if you're interested in having a sit down or a meeting with the folks that are doing the name study, we did that for the state of Washington. There were some requests through, I believe, their Department of Ag and Ecology to figure out what was going on with the name study. So if that's something you're interested in, I can arrange that and try to, you can hear it directly from them where they're sitting at with their study right now.
Yeah, I may take you up on that. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Questions for Nick? Anything in the chat?
No.
All right, thanks so much, Nick. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other partners either in the room or online that have updates for us? I think our DEQ staff couldn't attend today, so I don't think we have any DEQ. And we heard from NRCS and WRD, so we've almost made the list, right? And the EPA. Last chance for updates. All right, not hearing any movement to public comment. Anybody would like to make public comment?
I don't care.
Go for it.
Hi, everyone. Alice Morrison from Friends of Family Farmers. I wanted to say that I'm glad to see the extension of the outreach period for the small dairy program. I still register the same concerns about requirements and whether or not it's appropriate for operations with 2 cows to fall under that. And I hope that we can continue those conversations. And I do pledge to continue to bring small producers into that conversation so you can, see where they're at with it. And I also am glad to hear that SB 85 rulemaking is on the horizon, and reiterate my request for someone from Friends of Family Farmers, either myself, one of my staff members, or producers from our network to be included in that rulemaking process. And yeah, I think that is most of my comments. I also want to say thank you for bringing OWEB into this conversation. I feel like I learned a lot about their programming, and I just want to publicly voice support for the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program.
Awesome.
We should definitely refund that program. It's been a wonderful boon and really brought down a lot of federal money in terms of conservation easement programs as well. So it's a great thing for our state, and I hope everyone in the room and on the call can join us in supporting that as it moves forward.
Great, thanks, Alice. Appreciate it. And I just say this to Alice, but everybody as well, right? If there are other entities, right, that we need to bring into this meeting to talk about what their programs are, just let us know, and we'll do our best to try to get them on the agenda. Because I think, we end up taking a lot of the partners for granted because we're just working with them along and not really, we need to highlight what they do, right? Because we have people in the room that don't know what to do. So just feel free to reach out and we'll try to get them to come to one of these meetings or set up a special one if we need to.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Sure.
One of the folks in my network asked me to ask if there had been a new application started on the Lost Valley site because it has recently changed ownership, and someone heard something and wanted to ask if there's any movement there.
No, no, so on the Lost Valley.
Lost Valley, then Easter Day now.
Right, so right, so the Easter Days have sold the property, right, to an entity called Canyon Farms. And at this particular point, there is no pending application for anything for that property.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else with comments, public comments? Folks online with comments? I'm sorry, online, virtual, sorry. Cloudy. Yeah. All right, not hearing any, since this is our last meeting for this calendar year, right, we will be having RAC meetings, right, in 2023, at least that's my plan. And so, my plan is to send out an invitation letter to a list of people that we've assembled based on, people that have come forward to us and said they'd like to participate, right, and then others, so we can make sure we can fill these seats to get representation from all of the broad swath of folks that we think we need to be here. It is currently set up that it's heavily populated by CAFO permittees themselves. Right, so one CAFOs that operate in groundwater management areas and then ones that operate outside of those, with different animal species at different sizes. So we're trying to look at all the different size categories in Guamas and outside of Guamas. For the CAFO, that's like 50% of the group. The invite list of that group is composed of those. And then, definitely, as we have REC meetings, right, they're open public meetings and anybody's welcome to attend, and participation may be limited, right, but you can definitely attend and listen to the conversation. So that's pretty much I have about that. One last chance for public comment, industry updates then. Not like National Ice Cream Day that we're missing or something like that. National Hot Dog Day or something, yeah.
Like, there's a national something day every day.
Right.
It's probably a national day.
There's an app for that, right? It tells you every morning what it is, and
It's National Chicken Fried Steak Day.
Oh,
wow.
Wow.
one day early.
All right, so there are a lot of things coming down the road, and we'll do our best to keep you in the loop on that. Like I say, the NRCS training. That they reached out to me and asked if I'd do a presentation there. It sounds like they will do a classroom session, right, and then an on-farm session. Because the activities, right, is writing a plan for a farm, so walking through the farm and looking at the infrastructure and the management pieces, which are huge, right, is a really good way to do that. So as soon as we get dates nailed down, that I will let everybody know. And it's kind of NRCS's thing, so I don't know if they have a limit on how many folks they want to attend, but I'd say the more the merrier. So anybody who would like to learn how to do nutrient management planning, it sounds like the ability to contract directly with NRCS is much more streamlined now. I went through the TSP process. Did you go through TSP? Yeah. And it's difficult. I'll make sure Katie goes so she can learn the planning effort in NRCS. Their plan includes many more things than we require, right? So she's correct that they don't necessarily match. But I would also say that CNMPs, unless they change dramatically from the last time I looked, include everything that we need. So we can accept a CNMP. It will have things in there that we don't need, right? But it will have the things that we do need. You know, so a CNMP for a dairy should work as an NMP for a dairy for a CAFO permit. So
They basically just been taking NMPT and adding on the NRCS requirement.
yeah,
So
okay. To make a CNMP, and again, okay.
Aim- Amy said that space is limited to 20 for the training
Okay.
and she will prioritize NRCS staff and industry and partners first.
Okay. Yeah, the classroom, yeah. Amy, could the classroom session be open to more people virtually if we muted them and not let them talk? They could at least listen.
Like,
I'm just like quietly creepily listening. I think so, but I would need to confirm with the training cadre that they would be accepting of that.
Okay,
I don't see why not functionally, but I know that there's breakout sessions, and, you know, we ask people to reference our ag waste management handbook for, you know, pounds of manure, gallons of, you know, excreted, all those things, and do little exercises on the side and then report out. So, you know, I guess it kind of depends on the format of the training if we can accommodate more, but I can certainly ask and get back to Wim.
thank you.
If there's 20 seats and 15 are taken up by NRCS employees,
Right,
then the need for younger people to
Right.
come in and do it would be squished.
right, well, ODC will go to Katie,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna talk, so I get to be there anyway.
You don't count the 20.
I don't count.
Oh, the tricky part is finding two dairies that'll let 30 yahoos trump about all day, you know, that's the.
If you need, let me know if you need help, I can give you the list.
Thank you.
We'll twist their arm a little bit. Get out of jail free CAFO inspection card. All right, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate all your participation and questions and the presentations. Definitely, I learned a lot today too, so really appreciate it. All right, all have a great end of the year. We will start again next year. And you can follow along with the RAC. Once we get RAC meetings scheduled, right, we'll post them on the site. And if you want to listen in, we think that will be an option, so. Take care, all.
thank you.
Hey, those links that Amy put up and.
Can you send those out, those links? Can you send those out to everybody?